For morning manna, we join the Apostle Peter in his letter of First Peter, chapter 2, in verse 24. First Peter 2:24. That speaking of Jesus, who himself bore our sins in his own body on the tree, that we, having died to sins, might live for righteousness, by whose stripes you were healed. Verse 25, the verse I want to camp on. I just couldn't resist verse 24, though, to have a reason to read that, to hear that myself. But verse 25, 1 Peter 2, you were like sheep going astray, but have now returned to the shepherd and overseer of your souls. I want to talk about overseers, or an overseer, not really overseers, just the overseer of our souls. We have an overseer of our souls. How great is that? We've talked about that before, I believe. That overseer, it can be defined as guardian, but when you break it down and into the Greek word of episkopos, you may have heard that term or some term similar to that. Episkopos, epi or epi, it means over and upon. So we have one who's over us, and he sees in the smallest of details. He even knows, in Matthew 10, he even knows the number of hairs on my head, which that may be fairly simple, but perhaps on your head it's more difficult. And he knows, he oversees not just the hairs on our head, or the sparrows that fall to the ground or in the air, and provides for them, but he looks after our souls. Who else can do that? He oversees our souls. He oversees in the smallest of detail. And how does he do that? What's the scope he does that through? Episkopos, over, scope, oversees, like a telescope or a microscope. What's the scope that how does he do that? Well, he controls us and he oversees us with love. Let me refer us back to Jeremiah 31. Yes, in verse 3, Jeremiah 31, I have loved you with an everlasting love. That's how he always sees and guides us. I've loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness, I have drawn you. He oversees us. He loves us with an everlasting love. And with loving kindness, I have drawn you. And that leads me, that word drawn, or that verb drawn, into the book of Hosea, chapter 11. So it may take you a moment to find Hosea, but it's well worth the effort to locate this. Of course it is. In verse 4 of Hosea 11, now we grab these promises and these reflections on the nature of God. This, of course, referring to the children of Israel, but we apply it to us as individuals to know the nature of God. I drew them in Hosea chapter 11, verse 4. I drew them, this regarding a portion of the children of Israel, with gentle cords. Or it can equally be translated, your margin perhaps has this, as the cords of man. Well, Philippians 2, who became a man, who became the epitome of man, of gentleness and love and loving kindness without sin. Of course, that's Jesus, who became a man. He humbled himself. Philippians 2, 7, 8, and 9, right there, became obedient even to the death of the cross. With bands of love, who demonstrated his love by being banded, by being pinned, by being nailed to the cross. Jesus did that with bands of love. And I was to them as those who take the yoke from their neck. What was the yoke? The yoke being the yoke of sin, big and small, hidden and open, the yoke of sin. I was to them who take the yoke from their neck. What a bondage he took from us, the sin that would cause our death for eternity. I stooped and fed them. And boy, did he stoop. He exited heaven and came to this earth, and not only came to this earth as a man, but then as a man pinned to the cross on Golgotha, on Calvary. And he feeds us, takes care of us. Just think of that when you celebrate communion. He feeds us. So how wonderful is that? I just want to leave us in the Gospels this morning in the book of Matthew, which we're studying, of course, on our Sunday mornings. And in Matthew chapter 15, verse 30, the great multitudes, Matthew 15:30, came to Jesus, having with them the lame, the blind, the mute, the maimed, and many others. The lame, maybe your walk is a little bit hindered, maybe metaphorically or maybe literally. The blind, maybe you don't see so well. That could be literally right now, or it could also be metaphorically. Maybe you're just not seeing situations with a clarity that's frustrating, and there's a vagueness to you. The mute, maybe you're having trouble speaking. I know people who fit all these categories right now. It literally speaking, have trouble, or literally speaking, or perhaps just again metaphorically. Maybe you don't know how to answer or what to answer. Well, you know how to answer with grace, but maybe not maybe the what is confounding to you right now. Maimed, just beat up, just feeling beat up, and many others. And they laid them down at Jesus' feet, and he healed them. He, not the situation changed, not the them-ness, but that he healed them. And I like just letting my eyes walk down here. The multitude marveled when they saw the mute speaking, the maimed made whole, the lame walking, the blind seeing. They glorified the God of Israel. And Jesus called his disciples to himself and said, I have compassion on the multitude. And you're in that multitude also. You and I are. This is not just past tense. Of course, this is an event, but it regards us too. He has compassion on us. His compassions, they fail not. Word for us today, all of us. God bless you this day, and fix your eyes on Jesus. Maranatha.